Hey snackers, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with the Snack Master. I'm your Snack Master, Matt Rothstein, and what are we going to do today? We're getting into Southern breakfast. I love Southern breakfast. I told you before, I'm a New York boy, but I gotta have my Southern food. Those people know how to cook. What are we doing today? We're going to do a staple, a classic Southern dish that you have to have at breakfast. We're doing biscuits and gravy, gang. That's right, homemade buttermilk biscuits, the only way to go. You gotta have it. And a nice, creamy, rich, peppery, delicious sausage gravy. I'm gonna show you how to put that all together. It's gonna be a beautiful thing, and we're gonna do some good snacking, kids, so let's get to it. What do we got right here? Right here we got our makings for our buttermilk biscuits. And biscuits you gotta be careful with. I'm not much of a baker, but I do know a couple things. You gotta have a couple tricks up your snacking sleeve. So first I got here 2 cups of flour, all-purpose flour. I got here 2 tablespoons of sugar. I got 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I got here a teaspoon of salt. And I have here a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Now, you gotta remember something, gang. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This recipe works at this altitude. If you want to learn how to do the math to fix this formula so it'll work where you live, Google it. Because you know what? When I moved here, that's what I did. I Googled it and I found out how to cook at this altitude. So this is what works here for me. So you take these dry ingredients and you put them together like this. Just whisk it together a little bit. And then the next thing that's going to go in here is you're going to have a 1/2 cup of lard. That's right, gang, lard. This is not health food, this is snacking food. This tastes good. You need the lard for the biscuits. Maybe you could substitute butter if you wanted, but I really wouldn't, because you know what? Butter has a different water content, and the water will change the chemical construction of this. Remember, baking is not food, it's not cooking. Baking is science. It has to be exact. So if you throw in an ingredient that's going to change the water balance between the wet and the dry, you might have problems. So anyway, I'm taking this lard because I know it works and I know it tastes great. I have a friend who's referred to these biscuits as satanically good as his eyes roll back in his head. So this is what we're going to use. I'm going to put in all that lard because it tastes great. And then you're going to work it in with your hands. Now, I got to admit, I don't want lard under my hands, under my nails, so I will use a glove when I do this. And at this stage of the game, you can work this as much as you want until you get the consistency that you want. You have to be real careful with the working once you add the wet ingredients, and we'll get to that in just a second. All right. Well, first you want to work this in. Come on. There we go. You want to work this in, work in this lard, and you want to get this to the consistency of wet sand. And it's going to take a little bit of time to get it where you want it and get it all worked in, but that's okay. It won't take that long. And again, this part you can work as much as you want because you're not hurting anything yet. You're not going to cause any gluten at this stage of the game. And gluten is what we don't want when we're making biscuits. That's why once we add in the buttermilk, we're going to be very, very careful how we work this, because we're not going to want to knead this. This is not bread, this is not pizza dough, this is biscuits. It has to be a different consistency. With that elasticity that you get when you make bread dough or pizza dough, that elasticity comes from the formation of gluten, which is a protein. And you don't want that in biscuits, that elasticity, because if you get that elasticity, you don't get the same sort of lightness and fluffiness that you get out of biscuits. Now this here is exactly where I want it to be. This is consistency of wet sand. I don't see any big clumps. It's perfect. So now, here's where we got to get careful, because now I'm going to add 3/4 cup of buttermilk. But here's the thing, I'm not going to add it all at once, because you don't want to add too much liquid, because as another guy says, you can always add but you can't take away. And he's right. So I'm going to add in a little bit of this. I'm going to start to try and very carefully bring it together, just sort of folding almost even, just till it gets wet, okay? And when I see that it's getting wet enough where it looks how I want it to look, I'm going to dump it out on the board. Again, you see I'm being very light now with this. And again, I'm folding. I'm not really working this. You don't want to work biscuit dough. We're going to move this off to the side just for a second. We have some more flour here to sprinkle the board with. And you need that. Whenever you're rolling or kneading or working anything that's a baked good, like a dough, sticky dough, which this is, you want to do it on a floured surface so it doesn't stick too much. And this again, we're just going to dump out. And as we try and get it into the shape we want, that is how we're going to get it the rest of the way incorporated. Because right now it kind of looks like a mess, but I promise you it isn't. So we're going to get that all out of the way. And I'm just going to start to bring this together just a little bit. And as you can see that I'm bringing it together, that's pretty much all we need. And basically, once I get a mixture that looks like I want it to be, it looks like it's coming together, I'm just going to flatten it out. And that's about, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick. I don't have a ruler in front of me, but you can see what it looks like here on the board. And that's it. For me, I don't need to have the biscuits necessarily round. Doesn't bother me so much if they're not round. I can just cut them, and that works for me. So I'm going to do that. If you want to make them round, you can get a biscuit shape, obviously, if you want, or you can get a just a large mouth glass, and you can use that as a shaper. That's just fine. Me, a square biscuit doesn't bother me a tiny bit. So this is looking exactly how I want it. I have made 9 biscuits out of this. I think the recipe calls for a little bit more than that, but I like my biscuits kind of big, kids, so I'm fine with this just like it is. And now, if you do want to have different shapes, you do want them to be a little bit round, now that I have them cut and I can do this without working them, now I can go ahead and shave them out a little bit, try and get something a little more consistent, and now they're good. So we get out a sheet pan. We're just going to put these guys on. Believe me, you don't need to grease the pan with all that lard in there. These are just fine the way they are. We're going to put this into a preheated 450-degree oven for 10 to 12 minutes. But we are going to do something very important before we do that. And that is the last step before they go in the oven. And that step is melted butter. Once again, not health food, snacky food. So we want real butter. So I'm going to take this melted butter that I have here, I'm going to generously brush the tops of these biscuits. And we do have some more butter here after we're done buttering these. But that's okay, because you know what? We're going to want to hit them again with more melted butter when they come out. So that's done. And these, like I said, go into the oven for 10 to 12 minutes. And then when we come back, we're going to make our gravy, kids. And we're going to be able to put this whole dish together. It's going to be fantastic. So stick around. Alright, snackers, we are back here on Cooking with the Snack Master. I got those biscuits in the oven. They're going to be out in just a few minutes. Right now we're going to get into our creamy, delicious sausage gravy. This is a really, really simple thing, kids. Basically, it's sausage, milk, flour, and you're done. It's real simple. So first we're going to add some sausage. We're just going to break that in the pan, break it up. Alright, so once again you can see the sausage is browning up nicely. And we're getting some fat in the pan. It's not going to be a lot of fat, but we don't need a lot of fat, so that's okay. And basically, once you see that your sausage is browned up, which this is, then you're going to add in And you're going to add in some flour. And you give it a stir to incorporate. That flour is immediately going to soak up all of that grease that's in the pan, all of that messy fat. But again, that's exactly what we want it to do. We're just going to cook this out just for a couple of minutes, a minute or two, no more than 3 really, because you don't want color on this kind of roux because it's supposed to be a white sauce. We're just trying to cook out the flavor of the raw flour a little bit. Alright, so that's cooked out to where we want it to be. So now, we just add some milk. I got 2 cups of milk here, probably will not need all of it. We're going to add some. I'm going to stir it in. As we begin to stir this and incorporate it, you're going to see that it will start to thicken. And this, by the way, is one of the French influences on Southern cooking, because really when you take fat and you take flour, as we know, you're making a roux. And when you make a roux and you add milk to it, that's a bechamel sauce, which is another one of the classic 5 mother sauces. Remember in the last episode, the steak and demi-glace, we talked about Espanol. Well, this is the bechamel. This is the wonderful bechamel sauce. But you know what? Again, in America, it's gravy. Sausage gravy. Now, in a true bechamel, you wouldn't use meat in it like this. You would use either butter or oil to make it. By the way, kids, we just heard our biscuits beep, so let's check on them. Ho, ho, ho. You see those? Brown, flaky, delicious. I'm going to leave those there, let them stay warm. I'm going to hit them, though, with a little bit more butter while they're still nice and hot. And this gravy is already getting pretty good to a consistency that we want. Once again, with any thickening agent, especially flour, especially roux, you won't know how thick it's going to be until it boils. And this has just come to a boil, and it's looking right where we want. I actually might want to add a hint more milk to it, but it's pretty close. Because as it cooks down, it's going to thicken more. So that's why I add a little bit more milk. Because if it looks a little bit too thin now, once I'm ready to serve it, it's going to be perfect. Now once again, this gravy, as it's coming to a boil, is thickening up quite nicely. So now it's time to season it. And like I said, it's a pepper gravy, so I have a lot of fresh ground cracked black pepper that I ground up myself right before we started. And of course we got to add a little bit of salt. Got to have some salt for everything, right? Stir in that pepper. Again, it's a pepper gravy. Some people actually even call this pepper gravy. So it should have a lot of pepper to it, and it should taste like pepper. Okay. So you see that? See how you can see the pepper in it? That's what you want, gang. This is exactly where we want. This is the consistency and thickness that we want. Our biscuits are done. Everything's done. So we're just going to have to meet you guys back at the counter in just a minute so that we can plate this thing up and eat. So stick around. Alright, snackers. We are back here on Cooking with the Snack Master. As you can see, we have a plate. We have our lovely, lovely biscuits right here. Right over there is the gravy. So why don't we get to this? Take a biscuit. Cut it. Oh, look at that. It's pillowy inside. It's fluffy. Oh, just fantastic. This is exactly what you want. This is a classic Southern breakfast. So what I need to do now that I got these biscuits, I need gravy. So now I have gravy, and like I said, it has thickened up more, but that's good. I want it to be nice and thick. And we'll just, oh, look at that. Oh, kids. This is a treat. This is exactly what it's all about. Southern breakfast snacking right here on Cooking with the Snack Master. and you gotta have a lot. Oh, and I do, and that looks just great. So, now, I gotta have some. No way I can skip this. Wow. The biscuits are pillowy, and they're buttery, and they're fantastic, and they're everything that you want a Southern biscuit to be. The gravy tastes like pepper. I feel it in the back of my throat. It's got a nice good amount of sausage in it. It's nice and meaty. It's creamy. It's delicious. You guys, you definitely want to make this one. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you make this soon. I hope you enjoy your Southern breakfast with your biscuits and gravy. Tree, I know this one's for you. I hope you're watching. So don't forget to stick around with us. Keep watching us on Cooking with the Snack Master. Keep checking us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/cookingwiththesnackmaster. Keep checking us out on Twitter at @TheOneSnackMaster. So you can find us there, see what's going on with the Twitter, and you can check us out on our blog, our website, which is cookingwiththesnackmaster.tumblr.com. So stay with us, keep up with what's going on with us on the web, and don't forget to keep snacking, kids. We'll see you next time.
Watch the rising steam, the silhouette